Ryan's office revenge.
I placed my business card on the mahogany desk the way you handle something that's about to detonate. Justin Thompson looked at it, then at me, then back at the card. His face went from confused to disbelieving, and then he laughed. Not some polite chuckle, a full, genuine laugh that bounced off the glass walls of his corner office. 45 minutes earlier, he'd terminated my employment in front of 6 people from the acquiring company. Now he was staring at that little piece of cardstock like it had just rewritten his future. The laughter died first. Then came the silence, thick and heavy like the air before a storm. My name is Scott Anderson. I'm 48 years old. Until that Tuesday morning, I'd spent 25 years building Apex Manufacturing from a struggling machine shop into a defense contractor worth $450 million. I wasn't the face of the company, wasn't giving speeches at industry conferences or appearing in trade magazines. I was the engine, the foundation nobody sees but everyone depends on. I designed the supply chains that kept our production lines running when competitors were shutting down during parts shortages. I built the vendor relationships that saved us during the steel crisis of 2019. When our main assembly line caught fire at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, I was the one coordinating the backup production while everyone else was still figuring out what backup production meant. See, I started at Apex right after my Navy discharge in '99. Lucas Thompson, the founder, hired me as a floor supervisor when we had exactly 47 employees and were making basic aircraft components in a converted warehouse. Lucas was old school, believed you learned manufacturing by getting grease under your fingernails, not by reading about it in business school. I negotiated contracts with defense suppliers who could crush us with a single delayed shipment. I created the quality systems that got us DoD certification and kept us there for 15 years straight. Every procedure manual, every supplier agreement, every safety protocol, I either wrote it or supervised the person who did. When we landed our first major Air Force contract in 2003, I was the one who figured out how to scale production from 200 units to 2,000 without breaking our quality standards. When the 2008 recession hit and half our competitors went under, I restructured our vendor network to weather the storm. By 2015, we were manufacturing critical components for F-35 fighters and had clearance for classified projects. I documented every process, every supplier relationship, every single point where things could go wrong in operations so complex that even our own engineers sometimes got lost. Not because I was obsessive, because in defense manufacturing, one screw-up can ground an entire squadron. Lucas understood that. He'd walk the factory floor every morning, knew every machine operator by name, could tell you the failure rate of any component we produced. But age caught up with him. His wife got sick. And one day in March, he called me into his office and said he was done. "Who takes over?" I asked. "Board's working on it," he said, but I could see in his eyes he wasn't happy with whatever they were working on. Then Lucas Thompson decided to retire. No succession plan, no gradual handoff, just an announcement at the quarterly meeting and an empty office the following Monday. The board panicked. They needed someone fast, someone with the Thompson name recognition, someone who could reassure investors that continuity was guaranteed. Enter Justin Thompson, 31 years old. Lucas's nephew, fresh from Wharton with an MBA and a LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords. Passionate about operational excellence, believer in lean manufacturing, focused on supply chain optimization across global markets. I'd met Justin exactly twice before he became my boss. Once at Lucas's 60th birthday party, where he spent the evening explaining to anyone who'd listen why American manufacturing was obsolete. Once at a company picnic where he told me I should consider pivoting into consulting because hands-on operations experience was super valuable in the advisory space. His first week, he called an all-hands meeting and announced that Apex was entering a new era of efficiency. We were going to streamline processes, eliminate redundancies, and position ourselves for exponential growth. The presentation had 47 slides and mentioned synergy 23 times. People applauded. I took notes. The changes started small. Justin hired an efficiency consultant who'd never worked in manufacturing. The guy walked around for 2 weeks with a clipboard, timing how long it took workers to complete tasks, then suggested we could improve productivity by 15% if we eliminated non-essential safety checks. I explained why those safety checks existed, how they'd prevented 3 major accidents in the past year alone, how DoD required them for certification, how removing them would void our insurance. The consultant nodded and made notes, then recommended we evaluate the cost-benefit ratio of safety compliance. Within days, the pattern emerged. Plant managers stopped going to Justin for decisions. They came to me. Quality issues bypassed his office entirely. When vendors needed approvals, they found me in the machine shop or the loading dock I'd turned into a secondary workspace because my actual office had been reassigned to Justin's strategic initiatives coordinator. I didn't complain. I fixed what broke. I answered what was asked. I stayed until the second shift ended, then stayed longer. When you've been inside a company long enough, you develop instincts. You feel the tremors before the earthquake. You smell smoke before anyone sees fire. Justin started scheduling meetings about organizational optimization. He brought in consultants who talked about right-sizing and process improvement. He announced we were going to implement industry best practices and eliminate legacy thinking. The writing was on the wall. I just hadn't realized he was planning to erase my name from it completely. When Harrington Capital began their acquisition due diligence 2 months later, I knew exactly how this story would end. Justin just hadn't read that far ahead yet. The change didn't announce itself with memos or restructuring charts. Justin simply stopped including me. Strategy sessions became leadership only. Client meetings turned into executive discussions. When people asked where I was, he'd wave dismissively and say, "Scott's more operational than strategic. He's great at keeping the machines running, but we need people who can reimagine the factory floor." I heard that line 4 times before I stopped counting. Here's what Justin didn't understand. Being underestimated is sometimes more valuable than being respected. When people think you're just the guy who fixes production problems, they stop watching what you're actually doing. They stop guarding their conversations. They forget that the person who built the system probably left himself a few access points. Not the shady kind, the documented kind, buried in technical specifications and compliance requirements that nobody reads until something goes catastrophically wrong. I kept working, kept my head down, my documentation meticulous, my responses brief and factual. When Justin made decisions that contradicted established protocols, I logged them. When he overrode safety measures that had taken years to implement, I archived the email chains. When he promised clients delivery schedules our production capacity couldn't support, I made sure the technical limitations were clearly documented with timestamps. Like when he told Boeing we could increase output on their hydraulic components by 40% just by optimizing workflow. I'd sent him 3 memos explaining why that was impossible without adding a 3rd shift and upgrading 2 key machines. Cost, $2.8 million. His response, "We need to think outside the box here." I documented that too. Harrington Capital's due diligence team arrived like auditors always do, polite, thorough, quietly skeptical. They asked intelligent questions. They wanted to see behind the curtain, beyond the glossy presentations and revenue projections. They wanted to understand what actually made Apex function. Justin met with them daily. He brought PowerPoints and confidence. He talked about market positioning and growth trajectories. He used the word synergy 11 times in one presentation. I counted. Meanwhile, I received different kinds of questions through back channels. A junior analyst would email asking about production capacity. A compliance officer would request documentation about our DoD certifications. I responded with facts, just facts. No opinions, no commentary, no finger-pointing. Then Rachel Martinez, Harrington's chief technical officer, sent me a calendar invite. Subject line, operational reality check. I stared at that invite because I understood what it meant. When the technical people go around leadership to talk to the actual builders, they've already found cracks in the foundation. They're not investigating anymore, they're confirming. The meeting was scheduled for 20 minutes. I prepared for an hour. Rachel didn't waste time on small talk. She opened her laptop, pulled up a document, and turned the screen toward me. Walk me through this. It was one of Justin's efficiency proposals, the one where he suggested consolidating our supplier base to reduce redundancy and improve cost savings. In practical terms, he wanted to eliminate the backup vendors that had saved us during the 2020 supply chain crisis. That would be catastrophic, I told her. We'd have single points of failure across our entire production line. One supplier goes down, we're out of business for 60 days minimum. That's what I thought, Rachel replied. But Justin assured us this was industry standard. It's standard for companies that don't mind shutting down production during a crisis. Rachel made a note. And the quality control changes he proposed? Which ones? She listed 7 initiatives. I explained why each one would either violate federal regulations or contradict contractual obligations with our defense clients. The aerospace industry doesn't mess around with shortcuts. When you're making parts for fighter jets, good enough can get pilots killed. I didn't editorialize, just connected the dots between Justin's ideas and their inevitable consequences. He wants to reduce inspection points from 12 to 4 on our turbine components, I explained. Says it'll speed up production. Problem is, those 8 extra inspections catch defects that would cause catastrophic engine failure. We're not making toasters here. At the end of our 20-minute meeting, which had stretched to 50 minutes, Rachel closed her laptop and looked at me directly. How much of this company actually runs through you? I picked my words carefully. I built most of the critical systems. I maintain relationships with key vendors. I hold the documentation for processes that aren't written anywhere else. Why isn't this documented elsewhere? It is. Justin just hasn't read those documents. Rachel's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. We'll likely have follow-up questions. I'll make myself available. 3 days later, an email appeared in my inbox at 11:23 p.m. No subject line, no body text, just an attachment labeled transition_planning_draft. The sender was an address I didn't recognize, but the domain belonged to Harrington Capital. Someone had sent me something I wasn't supposed to see. Either it was a mistake, or it was a very deliberate test. I opened it. The document was exactly what the file name suggested, an internal draft of Harrington's post-acquisition transition plan. It was full of bracketed placeholders, track changes, and marginal notes in different colors, the kind of working document that exists before decisions become official announcements. I scrolled slowly, taking in the organizational charts, role definitions, integration timeline. Then I found the section that made my pulse spike: critical personnel retention and authority structure. Under it, a subsection: Operations Continuity Officer. Next to it, TBD, requires board approval. The next morning, Justin pushed through another optimization initiative. This time, he decided to renegotiate our primary steel supplier contract without consulting legal or procurement. He sent an email demanding a 25% cost reduction, citing market standards that didn't exist. The supplier called me directly. "What's going on, Scott? This email doesn't sound like you." "It's not from me," I replied carefully. "I'd recommend you wait 48 hours before responding. Should we be worried about the contract? No. About the transition? Let me get back to you." I forwarded the entire email chain to a generic compliance inbox that I knew Harrington was monitoring. No commentary, no accusations, just the thread with a simple note: FYI, vendor relationships may require stabilization during transition period. 8 hours later, Rachel called me. "Did you approve that supplier renegotiation?" "No, I wasn't consulted." "Do you know what the impact would be if they terminated the contract?" "We'd lose access to 60% of our raw materials within 30 days. Production would need to be moved to emergency protocols. Cost would be approximately 12 times whatever Justin thinks he'd save." Long pause. "Can you document that analysis?" "Already done. I'll send it now." After that conversation, something shifted in how Harrington communicated with me. Questions stopped coming through official channels. They started arriving in my personal email, sometimes through encrypted messaging. They weren't asking me to explain Justin's decisions anymore. They were asking me what should happen instead. Draft org charts arrived with my name already penciled into key positions. Risk assessments included phrases like "per Anderson's operational review" and "contingent on Anderson's authorization." Legal memos referenced operational continuity requirements that seemed designed specifically around my role, even though nobody had officially offered me anything yet. Meanwhile, Justin was celebrating what he called momentum. He brought in external consultants who'd never worked in manufacturing. He announced a company rebrand that would cost $3 million and accomplish nothing. He told the engineering team they needed to think bigger and move faster, which is corporate speak, for "I don't understand what you do, but I need you to do it differently." The consultants were the worst part. 3 guys in suits who spent 2 weeks walking around with tablets, asking questions like, "What's your core value proposition in the aerospace vertical?" to machinists who'd been making precision components for 20 years. One of them suggested we could save money by switching to commercial-grade aluminum for our Air Force contracts. I had to explain that military specifications exist for reasons that go beyond cost savings. "But the profit margins," he kept saying. There are no profit margins if we lose our clearance, I replied. Justin loved these guys, called them fresh perspectives and strategic thinkers, had them present their findings to the whole leadership team. Their big recommendation? Outsource 40% of our machining to a facility in Mexico that had never made anything more complex than automotive parts. I documented that too. Melissa Turner, an engineer who'd been with Apex for 12 years, stopped by my workstation one evening. She'd been quiet during the consultant presentations, but I could see the worry in her face. "Are we going to survive this?" she asked quietly. "The company will. Some of the decisions won't. Is Harrington going to clean house?" I looked at her directly. "They're going to stabilize things. That's all I can say right now." She nodded and left, but I could see the relief in her shoulders. Word was getting around. People were asking each other what I thought about this or that change. The smart ones were keeping copies of technical documents, just in case. That night, another document arrived in my inbox. Same mysterious sender. This one was labeled transition_final_draft. I opened it already knowing what I'd find. The placeholder was gone. In its place, Operations Continuity Officer, Scott Anderson. No brackets, no question marks, just my name typed cleanly into the official structure of whatever came next. The next week, Justin made his biggest mistake yet. He decided to optimize our relationship with Northrop Grumman, one of our anchor clients. We'd been manufacturing hydraulic actuators for their defense systems for 8 years. Solid contract, steady work, but Justin thought we were leaving money on the table. He scheduled a call with their procurement team without telling me. Went in talking about value engineering and cost optimization. Suggested we could deliver the same components for 20% less if they'd accept functionally equivalent materials. The Northrop guy was polite but firm. "We need the exact specifications. These aren't suggestions," Justin pushed back. Said we were strategic partners and should have flexibility to optimize the design. The call ended badly. I got a text 30 minutes later from our contact at Northrop. "What's going on over there? That didn't sound like your usual approach." I called him back immediately. "New management philosophy." I wasn't involved in that conversation. "Should we be concerned about our contract?" "Give me 48 hours, I said. "I'll straighten this out." But I didn't call Justin first. I called Rachel Martinez. "We may have a client retention issue," I told her. "How serious?" "Northrop Grumman. They're questioning our commitment to specification compliance. That's about $12 million in annual revenue. What happened?" I forwarded her the email chain from Justin's assistant about the call agenda. New management wanted to renegotiate terms without understanding the technical requirements. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. "Can you fix this?" "Yes, but not through official channels. Do what you need to do." I spent the next morning on the phone with Northrop's engineering team, walking through every specification, every test requirement, every quality checkpoint they needed. By lunch, I had their confirmation that as long as nothing changed in our actual production processes, they were comfortable maintaining the relationship. But Scott, their project manager, said, "We need to know who we're really dealing with going forward." "Understood," I said. "Things are stabilizing here. You'll have clarity soon." Justin called an emergency leadership meeting for Monday morning. The invite went to 5 people. I wasn't one of them. That wasn't new. What was new was the follow-up email I received 12 minutes after the meeting started. It came from Harrington's legal team marked urgent. "Scott, we understand personnel changes are being discussed this morning. Please confirm whether operational continuity approval has been granted for these changes." I read that sentence 3 times. Operational continuity approval. That phrase appeared nowhere in Apex's existing corporate structure, but it appeared 19 times in the document that had been quietly circulating among Harrington's leadership team. I replied with 4 words: "No approval has been granted." Within 20 minutes, Justin's proposed changes were suspended pending review. No explanation, no announcement, just a terse email from Harrington stating that all personnel decisions were frozen until further notice. Justin didn't understand what had happened, but he knew something had happened. He started watching me differently, not with hostility exactly, more like confusion, like he was trying to solve a puzzle he didn't remember starting. The real test came 48 hours later. Justin decided he needed to right-size the organization before the acquisition closed. He drafted a restructuring plan that eliminated 9 positions, including 3 people who'd been with Apex since the beginning. People who knew where all the undocumented processes lived. People whose institutional knowledge couldn't be replaced by hiring someone with a fresher resume. He submitted the plan to Harrington's transition team without telling me. Rachel called within minutes. Did you review this restructuring proposal? No. Do you approve it? I pulled up the list of names. Felt my stomach tighten. Tom Rodriguez, our senior machinist who could diagnose any equipment problem by listening to the sound it made. Maria Santos, who handled our most complex DoD compliance audits. Bill Foster, who'd personally trained half our quality control team. No. This would eliminate critical operational knowledge. We'd be flying blind in at least 6 major production areas. Can you document that? Give me 90 minutes. I spent those 90 minutes writing the most important memo of my career. Not about Justin's incompetence, not about his inexperience, just about what happens when you remove the people who actually understand how things work. I listed every knowledge dependency, every gap that would open, every point where we'd be vulnerable during the transition. By end of day, the restructuring was canceled. Not delayed, canceled. Accompanied by a new memo from Harrington stating that all organizational changes must be approved by operational continuity leadership. Justin stormed into my workspace for the first time since he'd taken over. His face was red, his usual composure cracked. "You're blocking me," he said flatly. I looked up from my monitor. "I'm protecting the infrastructure. That's not your job anymore." "Actually," I said, "according to the acquisition agreement, it is." He stared at me. "What are you talking about?" Section 15, subsection C. All operational decisions during the transition period must be cleared through designated continuity leadership. I'm the CEO. You're the interim CEO of a company being acquired. There's a difference. His face went through several colors. This is insubordination. This is contract compliance. He left without another word, but I could hear him on his phone in the hallway, his voice rising as he tried to get someone at Harrington to overrule what I'd just told him. Nobody called me that evening to contradict anything. Thursday morning was coming, and I knew exactly what would happen in that conference room. Thursday morning arrived with perfect weather. Not dramatic or symbolic, just clear skies that made the factory building look exactly like what it was, a place where real things got made by people who knew how to make them. I arrived 30 minutes early, not because I was nervous, but because old habits persist even when everything else is changing. Justin was already there, of course. New suit, expensive watch, the kind of preparation that suggested he'd been awake since 5 a.m., getting ready for whatever he thought was about to happen. Harrington's team arrived precisely at 9 a.m. Rachel came first, followed by their CFO, 2 legal advisors, and finally Kevin Miller, Harrington's CEO. The kind of man who didn't need to announce his authority because everyone in the room already felt it. Justin stood to greet him, hand extended, smile confident. "Kevin, good to see you again. I think you'll be pleased with the transition progress we've made." Kevin shook his hand briefly and took a seat at the head of the table. "Let's review where we are." Justin launched into his presentation. Slides about integration milestones and cultural alignment, charts showing projected efficiencies. He talked about right-sizing the workforce and streamlining operations. My name appeared once in a section titled Transitioning Support Functions. The subtitle read, Legacy Operational Roles to be Absorbed into Broader Management Structure. I sat quietly, taking notes, same as I'd always done. When Justin finished, Kevin didn't respond immediately. He looked at Rachel, who opened a thick folder and placed it in the center of the table. "Before we proceed," Rachel said, "we need to address the operational continuity framework." Justin frowned slightly. "I'm not familiar with that term." "It's outlined in Section 15 of the acquisition agreement," Kevin said. "The section your counsel should have reviewed with you." "I read the agreement," Justin replied, though his tone suggested sudden uncertainty. Rachel pulled out a specific page marked with yellow highlighter. "This section establishes that during the transition period, all decisions affecting system stability, personnel with critical knowledge, or operational infrastructure must be approved by the designated continuity authority." Justin shifted in his seat. "Right. I understand the concept, but obviously as CEO, that authority would rest with me." "That would be the case," Kevin said, "if we hadn't identified significant operational risks during our due diligence." The room got quieter. Rachel continued, her voice neutral, factual. Over the past 2 months, we've documented 14 instances where executive decisions directly contradicted technical requirements, 3 cases where vendor relationships were jeopardized by unauthorized renegotiations, and 2 separate occasions where production changes were implemented without proper safety protocols. Justin's confidence flickered. Those were efficiency initiatives, part of modernizing the operations. They were risks, Rachel corrected, and they required intervention by operational leadership to prevent client impact. Operational leadership, Justin repeated slowly. You mean my team? No, Kevin said. We mean Scott. Every eye in the room turned to me. I kept my expression neutral, hands folded on the table. Justin looked between Kevin and Rachel like he was waiting for someone to explain the joke. I don't understand. Then let me clarify, Kevin said. He nodded to Rachel, who slid a document across the table. Not to Justin, to me. I knew what it was before I touched it. The contract I'd been copied on but never officially signed. The contract that formalized what had been happening informally for weeks. Effective immediately, Kevin said, Scott Anderson holds final authority over all operational decisions during the transition period. This includes personnel changes, system modifications, vendor relationships, and production planning. Justin stared at the document like it was written in a foreign language. That's not possible. I'm the CEO. You're the interim CEO, Rachel clarified, and your authority is now subject to operational approval for any decision that affects production continuity. This is... Justin stopped, recalibrated. This is highly irregular. It's standard practice, Kevin replied, when the acquiring company identifies that critical operations are dependent on specific individuals rather than documented processes. But I was fixing that, Justin said, his voice rising slightly. That's exactly what my restructuring was designed to address. Your restructuring, I said quietly, speaking for the first time, would have eliminated the people who actually know how the systems work. Justin turned to me. You can't be serious. You're going to override me? I'm going to protect what we built, I replied. I'm trying to improve what you built. No, I said calmly. You're trying to take credit for something you don't understand. The silence that followed was absolute. Kevin cleared his throat. Justin, we need to discuss your role going forward. Justin straightened, grasping for familiar ground. Of course. I assume I'll continue as CEO, working with Scott on operational matters. Kevin exchanged a glance with Rachel. Actually, we're making a different arrangement. Justin's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, denial, understanding, panic. We're offering you a position in our operational development program, Rachel said. You'd be working directly with production teams, learning system management from the ground up. It's an excellent opportunity to develop the technical foundation. You're demoting me, Justin interrupted. We're repositioning you, Kevin corrected. Same compensation package for the first year, different responsibilities. At our Phoenix facility, they handle defense contracts for our Western operations. Justin looked around the table as if someone might suddenly defend him. Nobody spoke. He turned to me. You planned this. I met his eyes. No, I prepared for it. There's a difference. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. This is because I didn't include you in meetings. This is because you didn't understand what you were running, I replied. And you never thought to ask the people who did. Kevin stood, signaling the end of the meeting. We'll send the formal offer by end of day. Take the weekend to consider it. Justin stood slowly, mechanically, like someone who'd just been told the rules of a game he thought he was winning. He walked out without looking at anyone. After he left, Kevin turned to me. That was harder than necessary. It was necessary, I replied. Rachel smiled slightly. Welcome to the leadership team, Scott. That's when I reached into my pocket and pulled out one of my old business cards. The title was outdated, irrelevant, almost embarrassing. I placed it on the table. I'll need new ones, I said. Kevin picked it up, read it, and actually laughed. Yes, you will. 6 months later, people asked me about that moment in the conference room. The moment I placed my business card on the table and watched everything change. How did it feel? Was it satisfying? Did I feel vindicated? The truth is, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like gravity. You can ignore the laws of physics for a while. You can pretend that competence is optional, that experience doesn't matter, that confidence equals capability. You can restructure and optimize and disrupt to your heart's content. But eventually, reality asserts itself. And when it does, the people who actually understand how things work are the ones still standing when the dust settles. Justin took the Phoenix job. Last I heard, he was working night shifts in the fabrication department, learning what happens when tolerances aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. Rachel told me he called her last month, asking if there might be a path back to management someday. What did you tell him? I asked. Ask me again in 2 years, she said, after you understand what breaks and why. Apex became the defense contracts division of Harrington Capital. We kept the same people, upgraded the equipment, and expanded into new markets. The company Lucas Thompson built in that converted warehouse is still here, still making things that matter, still run by people who understand the difference between talking about work and actually doing it. My new business cards arrived last week. Chief Operations Officer, Defense Division. Simple, accurate, earned. Sometimes the best revenge is just being right when it matters most. In the end, you can't fake 25 years of knowing how things actually work, and eventually, everyone finds out who's really keeping the lights on.